everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I decided it was a good day to share my birth story with Finn, my 5th pregnancy, my 5th baby, my 5th C-section, and just kind of talk about that whole experience. This is a video that's been really hard to make because it's hard for me to think about his birth story without getting emotional because it ended up just going so different and being so much harder than I expected. And that's the thing about childbirth and pregnancy and everything that comes along with it. You know, we have these dreams and we envision how we want the day to go. And for so many, that is how it goes. And it's so beautiful. No matter what, it's so beautiful. But sometimes it's scary and it's painful and it's emotional and it's hard. Really, really hard. And that is how my fifth birth story went with Finn. If you're new here or just stumbled across my video because you're pregnant and expecting, or if you're having another C-section or found out you are having your first C-section, hi, welcome. My name is Kaylee. I am a mother of 5, ranging in ages from 20 to my baby who is 11 months old. And I'm really excited to share this birth story with you. Right from the start, my pregnancy was filled with so many emotions. I was so scared when I found out I was pregnant. I was scared of being older. I was scared of what my older kids would think and those age gaps. And I was just very, very nervous. And it was hard. It was hard when I found out. But I did know that once the baby was here, everything would make sense. Everything would fall into place. And when we told our kids that we were expecting, they were so excited. And very quickly, all of those nervous feelings just turned into pure joy. But also filled with a lot of morning sickness and just a hard time adjusting. So I would say my pregnancy was pretty hard. It was pretty hard for me emotionally and mentally. Physically, I was older. I was 39 during my pregnancy, but I felt okay. I did feel a little more tired. My body felt a little more worn out. It was also my 5th pregnancy, so everything to be expected. But overall, I wouldn't say it was that much harder than my others. I'm very fortunate that I had a healthy pregnancy this time around, but I was really, really sick. I did make a few update videos throughout my pregnancy if you want to go back and watch those. I also made some with my 3rd and 4th pregnancy. I was a lot better with those ones. Those are all in a playlist under my baby journey, so check those out if you have any more questions or if you're just wondering about anything else. I talk a lot about my pregnancy in those videos. I've had C-sections with all 5 of my babies. The first one was an emergency C-section after laboring and trying to get her here vaginally. It didn't work out. I ended up with an emergency C-section and then just had scheduled C-sections with my other babies. And they've all gone really well, and this one was no exception. The actual C-section went really great. So anyway, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And again, if you have any questions, I did plan on doing like a whole video about C-sections, and I can revisit that and just answer questions. With the way everything went, I wasn't able to make the video that I had planned, but I am happy to answer questions, so just let me know. So we scheduled the C-section the night before. I was just so nervous. I remember just thinking, I just have to get through this. I just have to get through this. I was cleaning my house. I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep at all, but I was just excited and thought, this is all gonna be okay. I'll have the baby. I'm gonna have all of my kids there. My sisters were coming. My parents were coming. I knew that everyone would be able to hold the baby and I'd be able to take a nap, so. If I'm remembering right, we had to be there at 4 in the morning. So we got there, got checked in, IVs, all the things that you have to do. I got the spinal block, and then my husband was able to come in. And we had done this 4 times previous, so we knew the drill. We knew what to do. I think just like when you're giving birth, when you're having a C-section, it is really good to try to stay calm. I know it's such an unnatural environment and there's so much going on, but just to continue to breathe. I like to talk with my husband and, you know, just breathe as you're feeling like the different tugs and pushes and pressure. Just kind of breathe through those. And I will say that this one was very different. My whole pregnancy, I could tell that I had so much fluid. My belly was gigantic. And I don't have very big babies, so I just knew that I had so much fluid. I was always telling Casey, my husband, that I had so much fluid. And when they when they made the incision, water gushed on the floor. And so that was really different. When I tell you that it felt so much better though, another thing throughout my whole pregnancy, I could, especially towards the end, I could feel that the baby was in my rib, like stuck under my rib. This same rib the entire pregnancy. It hurt. It was uncomfortable. My belly was lopsided if I laid down. I could just tell he was really stuck right there. So with my other C-sections, there was some, tugging and pressure. With this one, with this delivery, they were pulling me. Like I felt them pulling my body, and it felt so different. It was a lot more than just like pressure and a little tugging. It was pulling. And then later I found out that they actually had to use a vacuum to get him out, and I didn't know that that was a thing with a C-section. So he was really just lodged up in my ribs, and they ended up having to vacuum him out. They got him out. I remember hearing him crying, but it sounding a little different, and I was a little concerned, but I remember thinking, okay, he's crying, it's okay. They held him up. I got to see him, and I don't know if I could just tell something was wrong, and I kept trying to convince myself, no, he's crying, he's okay, he's crying. But I just feel like as a mom, you know when something's a little off. After I had my babies, my husband and I always, share a little moment, and we're so happy and excited, and we're always like, okay, go over and be with the baby while they finish stitching everything up. And Casey went over, and he was with Finn while they kind of, wipe him off and suction extra fluids out, because when you have a C-section, they don't get a lot of that fluid pushed out of their lungs like they do if you deliver vaginally. And so that's something that we're expecting. They're sucking extra things out. And after a little while, and still I remember thinking, he's okay, he's crying, he's okay. And then Casey came over and said they're thinking that they need to take him to the NICU. He's not breathing quite right, and they're just gonna check some things out. And this wasn't my first experience with this happening. With my second baby, he was also a C-section. After he was delivered, I remember I didn't hear him cry, and I was so scared. And that's the scariest thing I think about. I mean, giving birth in any way when you don't know what's going on with your baby. With a C-section, it's a little more extreme, I think, because you have a curtain up, so you can't see anything that's going on. You can't see if they're working on your baby. You can't see where your baby is, and it is really scary. It just is a really scary part of that, especially when you feel like something is wrong. And with my second baby, they rushed him away right away, and I remember my husband just saying they have to take him to the NICU. He didn't really know what was going on. I had no idea what was going on, and it was a similar thing. They felt like he had fluid in his lungs, and that's what they were saying with Finn. But before they took Finn, they did bring him over, and they put him by me, which was it was so nice to be able to see him, but I could just tell that he couldn't breathe right, and it was scary. And I just remember wanting so badly to hold him, and help him, but knowing that I couldn't. And I just remember wanting to keep him with me, but also I was scared, and I just wanted them to take him and help him. So that's what I was like, okay, just take him. I can tell there's something wrong. This part's kind of a blur. I can't remember how long Casey was with me, if he was able to go, and I have thought about doing a video with him so he can kind of share his experience, because he also went through a lot. So by the time they got me stitched up, I don't do well with pain medication, plus the lack of sleep. I was just kind of out of it, but I remember him being back with me and telling me and updating me on what was going on with Finn, that they were doing x-rays and tests and checking him out. They had him on oxygen, and there was just a lot going on. And then they wheeled me into my room, and this moment was so hard because I had been dreaming for months about holding the baby, being pushed into the room, and my kids getting to meet him. We were all just so excited, and I couldn't wait to just be like, he's here he is, and for everyone to just get to love him and hold him and And to enter into the room and just look at everyone, and everyone was so scared and concerned, it was just heartbreaking. It's really hard to be so scared as a mom, not knowing what's going on. And it's really heartbreaking to look at your kids and to see that fear on their face because they don't know what's going on. They don't know if the baby's okay. And there was just a lot of sadness in that room instead of the happiness that I had dreamed of, you know? But thankfully, my kids are so incredible and they're so strong. Braylee, my oldest, was 19 at the time, so she was able to go to the NICU and she got to see him. My son was almost 16 at the time and he did go into the NICU. They were like, he got to see him really quickly and they were like, okay, we're going to let this time slide, but you have to be 18 to be in the NICU. So he also got to see Finn, and that made me so happy that they got to see him. And I just hoped that Finn could feel them there. Honestly, a lot of that day's a blur. I know that my parents were able to go see him. Casey's parents were able to go see him. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, I don't do well with pain medication, and I was throwing up. So I was just kind of out of it. I was throwing up, but they were so great in the NICU. I will never be able to express my gratitude for the doctors and the nurses and just how wonderful they were. Also, my nurse in recovery, I was just so blessed to have such a great team and such a great support at the hospital. They ended up figuring out a way to wheel me in my gigantic hospital bed into the NICU so that I got to see Finn and I got to spend time with him. And my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, and my husband gave him a blessing. And while I felt a lot of sadness that day, I also felt a lot of peace. And I know a lot of you were sending love and prayers our way. And when I tell you that I just felt that so strongly, I don't know how else I could have felt so much peace. So I was able to stay with him in the NICU for a little while, and then I started feeling nauseous, and so they wheeled me back down. And I was sick for a little while, but then I got a little rest and was feeling better by that evening. So we were able to go back down and see him and check on him, and he was still really struggling. I can't remember what tests that they had done, but he had a lot going on. He had an IV in his belly button, he had monitors, he had another IV in his wrist that they were monitoring a lot of different things through that. And it's just so hard to see your baby like that. It's heartbreaking, and at the same time, you're so grateful that there are all of these things that can help your baby and make sure he's okay. And I just remember watching him still struggling to breathe even though he had oxygen. So we were able to spend some time with him then, and then they have breaks during NICU hours, so we went back to the room, and then we were going back later that night. And when we went in, there was just a rush of people around him, and it was really chaotic, and they were like, you can't come in right now, we have to intubate him. And I just remember feeling like, what is going on? Everything felt so overwhelming. So we went back to our room, and then we were able to go and see him a little while later, and he was intubated. They had a really hard time getting him intubated, and to see him like that again, it was just really heartbreaking, and it was so hard. But I remember also feeling this peace, and I also noticed that he was breathing so much easier. So it was scary and it was a lot, but I just remember feeling like I could tell he could breathe better, and then that brought me a lot of comfort. Since he had different IVs and different things that they were monitoring, we weren't able to hold him. It's just such a natural feeling to want to hold them and comfort them and make them feel okay. And to just have to look at him laying there by himself was terrible. It was terrible. That night I started to pump, and it felt like the only thing that I could do for him. And I just like pumped and pumped and pumped and pumped. I mean, it was just a little tiny bit, but I was able to walk to his room, which felt good to be able to get up and walk and see him. And so that's what I did throughout the night. The next day, even though he looked like he was breathing better, he wasn't getting better. And when we went down, they said, we think we need to do a spinal tap to see if he has any infection because he's not getting better and we don't know why. I felt like our experience in the NICU, they told us enough to let us know kind of what was going on, but not to panic. So I remember thinking, I don't want them to do a spinal tap. That's so huge and so painful, and I was so worried. And so they assured me that they would make sure he was as comfortable as they could. He would, he'd be okay, but they really needed to do that test. So they did the test. Thankfully, everything came back clear, but they were just so worried because he wasn't getting better. Another test that they needed to do was an ultrasound of his brain, because when he would cry, he was turning his arms in, and they were worried that he could have had a stroke or seizures, and that might have affected his brain. They didn't know if he wasn't getting oxygen for a certain amount of time, so they just needed to do an ultrasound of his brain. Again, everything came back normal, thankfully. Finally, day 3, things just kind of shifted and he started feeling better. Talking to the doctor days before and him saying, we can't figure out what's wrong, and sometimes babies just make a turn and we don't know why. We don't know what was wrong. We don't know why they're all of a sudden doing better, but that can happen, and that is what happened on day 3. He just started doing better. His numbers were where they were supposed to be. Everything was just starting to look better. They were able to remove the IV out of his arm, which meant we were finally able to hold him. And that was the best day. So when we got to hold him, Braylee was there. Braylee, Casey, and I went down and we got to hold him, and it was so great. And then an hour later, they were having a break. I got to go and do skin on skin for an hour. It was such a special moment doing skin to skin with him. I swear he was smiling. It was the sweetest, most healing moment. And I was just so grateful. I was just so grateful for that. So we did skin to skin. And then when we were able to go down and visit, we were able to hold him, which was so good. But the bad thing about day 4 is that we had to leave him. We still don't really have answers to what was going on with Finn, but we do know, and we did find out, that the doctors were very scared that they were going to lose him. Like I mentioned, they tell you enough in the NICU to let you know and keep you informed about what's going on and what needs to be done, but they don't want to scare you. After leaving Finn in the NICU for a few days, we were like, okay, he's doing better. Why can't we bring him home? And the doctor did explain to us that his little body was still healing. Like, his numbers were doing better and he was doing better, but he was still recovering. And he explained that things were really a lot scarier than we realized, that they were really scared that they were going to lose him because they couldn't figure out what was going on, and that it was really scary. So his body just needed a little more time to heal, which again just gave us a lot of peace knowing that he was there getting the best care possible, healing. And even though it was heartbreaking being home without him, we knew that he was in the right place. And he did continue to improve, which was so great, but he couldn't eat. And we did a lot of research on this, and a lot of babies have a hard time eating when they're in the NICU. So I was trying to breastfeed, we were giving him a bottle, and he just really couldn't eat. So he was still being fed through a feeding tube. We finally did a test. Thankfully, there was a specialist there that recommended a test be done, a swallow test. And they found that he wasn't aspirating, but it was, I can't remember what it was called now, but when he swallowed, some of the fluid wasn't going exactly where it needed to. So what we had to do was thicken the breast milk. So we used a gel to thicken the breast milk. He ate really great for 2 days, and then we were finally able to bring him home, which was just the best day ever. The kids got to finally hold him and meet him. All of these little things were very healing, but I will say that having a baby in the NICU just kind of changes you. It changes the way that you see a lot of things. I have a hard time because I have so much pain from that experience, but I also have so much gratitude. But I also feel guilty because I know that so many parents don't get to bring their babies home from the NICU. I also know that there are babies who spend so much time in the NICU. We were there for 12 days, and those 12 days just felt like 12 years to not have your baby home with you, and I know that it's so much longer for some families. I think that there is a connection that a lot of us feel who have had babies in the NICU, and I do feel that. I feel a special connection. A lot of people reached out to me and shared their story with me, and I'm so grateful for that. I think that it's really hard to heal from a lot of that pain and a lot of that heartbreak and a lot of that fear. And I just try to honor that for myself and honor that for you. And I don't know, it feels really overwhelming sometimes. Like I said, that I feel grateful, I feel guilty, I feel so fortunate, and it's hard to feel all of those things. But I am so grateful, and Finn has been such a blessing. And now Finn is 11 months old. He hasn't had any health problems. He's probably been my healthiest baby, and I'm grateful every single day, truly every single day. We're about to celebrate his first birthday next month. I can't wait. It's felt like the longest year of my life, and it's felt like the best year of my life. It's just felt like a year full of so many emotions. Like I can't explain this year. Like I said, Finn has been the biggest blessing. So it's been the best year, and I just love watching him grow. I love watching each milestone. I love being an older mom. I was really nervous about that, but it's been great. And I'm just really happy. So the journey was a little hard, but I'm very, very grateful. At the end of the day, that's just truly how I feel, so grateful. But I can hear Finn calling my name. He's crying a little bit. I did plan on talking more about having another C-section. I think that maybe I'll save that for another video. So please leave any questions about C-sections, about multiple C-sections, about recovery, anything you want to know down below, and I will get that video up as soon as possible, talking about my experience and answering any questions that I can. Sorry, this is a little rushed, but I need to get down to that boy. This will officially be my very last birth story. No more babies. I did end up getting my tubes tied. I just don't think I can do it again. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.